Well, greetings, folks. It's so good to be back with you again. This is another episode of the podcast. This is my story. Reverend Lee Michaels here, and as always, we find some compelling and provocative guests to share with you. Sometimes they're guests that are known on your radar. Then sometimes they're people who are underneath the radar but have compelling stories, such as the case is our guest today. Her name is Diane Wilkinson. We call her Dee. Diane is with us. She's got a great story. Diane, how are you today?
I am great. Yes, I'm great. How are you?
I am blessed, and even more
Yes.
so, I'm talking to you. But
Yes.
first and foremost,
Last name Wilkins. Not
Wilkins.
Wilkinson.
What did I
Yes.
say? What did I say? Wilkinson?
Yes, it's Wilkins.
Thank you very much. That's
You're
Wilkins. That's one correction for the story. But listen, first and
welcome.
foremost, thank you. Thank you for agreeing to be with us today.
Yes, sir.
And of course, I've had an opportunity to hear your story, and you've got quite a story, and you shared it in the midst of a gathering not too long ago, and of course, we talked about it. But what was it that about the story, your story, that made you, I feel, compelled to want to share it with others?
What was it about my story? Wow. There were many different things about my story because my story is me. I lived different things in my life that caused me trauma. But at the time, like I said, I didn't even know what trauma was. I just know that some of the things I lived, I put it in the back of my head somewhere and just kept going. I didn't find out later that it was trauma that I was dealing with because it spilled over.
And a lot of times with trauma, you can be affected with it even after the initial incident. So something could have
Yes.
happened that traumatized you, and you can have a lingering effect that may go years until it's finally realized that, wow, I've been dealing with this. Was that your
Yes.
case?
That is truly my case. That's truly my case. I had no idea what it was. I just know some of the pain and some of the things I was carrying around with me. I didn't know what it was called. I just know I had some pain. But when certain things happened, that reoccurrence of death and other things that happened in my life, found out just what it was. I was going through a lot of trauma.
Well, look, why don't, for the sake of our audience, because again, I'm familiar with your story, but for the sake of our audience,
Yes.
why don't you kind of give us, tell us your story. Give us a glimpse of what exactly happened to Diane that
Woo.
led to this traumatization and ultimately impacted your life for so many years.
Yes. Well, if I go back, way back, when I was that little girl, I would say my very first traumatic experience I had was the death of my dad. Which, again, like I said, I had no idea what it was. I just know that I had a void, that I was missing him. And as years went on,
How old were you? How old were you? How old were you when he
oh,
died?
I had to be about 6, 7 years, somewhere in that age, between 6 and 7, somewhere around there when he passed away.
How did the
I
family
could
break
have been
it?
7, 8.
How did the family break it to you that he had passed?
Well, actually, my mom and dad were separated at the time, and I just remember my mom lived over top of the store, and we heard a knock. And I went to the window and looked, and there was my uncle standing there. He was hollering for my mom, and looked out the window. He said, "Bert, John died." Of course, don't know what that is, and that was never meant that we weren't going to see him again. I didn't understand what that meant
Sure.
to not see him again
At that age, sure. At that
at
age.
that age. Yes.
And you said that there was something about the funeral that also reflected the trauma.
Wow. Yes, at that age, I can remember my mom getting myself and 3 more of my siblings together to go to a funeral. And when we got there, again, I remember standing outside of this car, which I know now is a funeral car. And as we stood there, I don't know what the conversation exactly was going on between my mom and my father, people, and grandfather, but I know we end up in this black car. And when I sit there in this car, I don't remember from the time of getting, I know I got in there. I I don't remember time of getting out. I don't remember the funeral. I don't remember like anything else about that.
So
And it,
you literally blacked everything out.
I literally blocked everything out. I don't remember anything. My mom, I talked to my mom. She said, "You don't remember?" I said, "I don't even know where the funeral was at." I have no idea because it wasn't something my mom just talked about my dad. It wasn't a conversation we had. It happened. It was over with. But I know as years went on, I lost another sister, and I remember the car pulling up, and of course, I'm being the oldest. They expected for me to get into the funeral car.
Sure.
I could
The
not.
limousine. The limousine. The
The
limousine.
limousine, exactly. I walked over to it, and I got there right beside it and couldn't get in. So I drove my own car. 'Cause I don't know what. I did not connect the dots. Why I didn't want to get in
But
that car, I just know.
you were still suffering the effects of the trauma of your loss of your dad, which was
Yes,
associated with that limo.
yes, yes. It took me years to connect the dots. And then I lost another sister and a brother and aunts and nephews and cousins. And the latest one was my husband's mother when she passed. We got there to the place where the funeral was at, and they said, "Y'all want to get in the car?" I walked over and I told them, I said, "I can't get in this car." So neither one of us got in. We drove his truck. I'm like, "What's the matter?" I did not know again that that funeral car related to my trauma. It took years before I realized that.
So how did you finally come about discovering? Oh, this I've got a problem going on here, and it seems like it has something to do with that first loss. That first loss. When did you finally come to grips with that? That was all
Ooh.
connected.
I went to actually after losing so many family members, I ended up going to see my doctor some years ago, and I was going through. I started having all this pain and things was going on along with everything that was going on in my life. And I told him, and my pressure had elevated a little bit. And I don't suffer from high blood pressure. So as I was talking to him, he said, "No, Diane, I need you to come to a class that I'm giving. And it's for grief. Because I don't think you actually grieved any of the loved ones properly." So I went there,
That's very
and
important.
yes, yep. Grief is very, it was what I need. It gave me the opportunity to face what I didn't want to deal with, and I began to heal. So after I dealt with the fact that my dad, my sisters, my aunts and cousins and nephews and everything that had passed away, and I think um, my brother was that like the icing on the cake because I've never seen nobody laying in the streets dead before at my age, never.
So you actually
And
saw him die. You saw him die.
I know I saw him on the streets. When I got there, they had the sheet over him. So um, I never seen nothing like it before. You see it on the news, but I've
Right.
never actually
But
been
it never
there.
hit home because it never actually hit home.
Never hit home. Not like that. That that
Wow.
that was that was something they have to deal with. And they telling us we cannot go over there to even
So,
look at them.
so let me ask you this, Diane. What was the process of recovery and grief like for you? Now, once you discovered, okay, all of this is connected. I've been
Mhm.
grieving all these years silently, and it's been affecting me. The trauma of the loss of these loved ones has been affecting me, and I've got to get past this. What was that process like?
Uh, First, I had to realize that I was even going through something. That was my biggest thing because it wasn't something families talked about. When we lost loved ones, it was over. As I got older, with my sister and them, it kind of changed when we would sit around each other and talk. So it wasn't really like getting the help that you need of the
Sure.
grieving process. It was just that we talked among each other and it moved on.
So you were
But
suffering silently. You were suffering
yes,
silently and didn't
yes,
even know it.
yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Did that
And
affect your relationships?
oh my gosh, yes, it did. It truly did. I realized that if you don't deal with the grief or pain, it will bleed over into other areas of your life. And that's what was happening to me. I felt like one thing after another was happening, and I didn't know how to deal with the first one. So the second one came, and the third one came, and it kept bleeding, and I couldn't stop it. And also, Pastor Michaels, that's a story, a part of my life where, like I think I shared it with you, that I wasn't always going to church,
Sure.
and
In other
where I
words,
was,
you wasn't on the beaten path. Most of us, we had to
yes,
find our way. But go ahead.
yes,
Go ahead.
and in doing so, where I was practicing at, uh, it was people where if someone passed away, it was like, okay, maybe that's what God wanted from them. God wanted them. So you didn't get a chance to grieve it. It was like, okay, so you begin to believe that it was okay, death was okay. And it's not saying that it ain't. However, we didn't take time to grieve. We busied ourselves out of that. Always doing something to where you didn't have time to process that I'm never going to see my sister again, or I'm never going to see this person again.
And
I knew it.
that was one of the things that I've learned as a pastor, that sometimes um, loss cuts so deep and it hurts so bad that we will try to run away from it, and run away from it by staying busy, staying
Yes,
active, finding things to
yes,
do, as if to suggest that if I stay busy and active, it'll go away. But it doesn't
yes,
go away. It just kind of resides in us until unexpectedly one day it resurfaces.
yes. Exactly. That's exactly what happened. I thought I could busy my way out, stay busy working, taking care of children, doing everything besides dealing with the fact of there was a loss and a significant
And
loss.
then there was another component, because you had to deal with um, um, some personal decisions that you made that came back
Mhm.
to revisit you with your daughter, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, Pastor Michael. That pain there, uh, like everything tied in. Because, like I said, I was got married at a young age, but I wasn't married when I got pregnant at the age of 16.
Uh-huh.
And being pregnant, I didn't know anything about that. I knew we watched my little siblings, but my mom wasn't happy that wasn't bringing no babies in that house. So, and I know anybody to see this would be like, Diane was pregnant at 16. We never knew it, but I was. And my daughter repeated the exact same thing I did.
It was
I
almost
mean,
like history repeated itself.
yes,
But
repeated
unlike
myself.
your mother being adamant about you not bringing a child in the house, what
Hmm.
happened? The shoe was reversed with you, with your daughter.
Wow. The shoe was reversed because of what I went through, the traumatic experience that I went through of being so far gone pregnant that it wasn't a pregnancy where you just go get a needle and get it over with. I actually had to push it out. And when I asked the nurse or whoever was standing there, I said, what do y'all do with those? She said, we put them in a jar for experiment. And that stayed with me. And for years, I walked around looking for my son, because that's what I carried, a boy. I looked around for a son, like they could be mine. They could have did something, they could be mine. And my daughter, when she got pregnant at 16, it reminded me of me reliving that. And I literally almost lost my mind because I was like, here I go again. But when the doctor handed me that piece of paper and said, here's a list of abortion places you can take her to. All that memories and pain and what I went through of not being having an opportunity to share it, or not having an opportunity to even deal with it, to cry or process it. It was like, go back into your neighborhood and just play. Be yourself. And when my daughter went through, I said, get up. We're gonna have this baby. And I got a grandson, he's 26.
Look at
Yes, 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 yes,
such
yes.
an and
Thank
I
God.
know, and I know from the time that I heard you share it, your family got a chance to hear your story in its entirety for the first
Yes,
time. And I
yes,
saw the looks on their faces. It was like they were really looking at you like a hero in the family for sharing all of that.
yes. It was it was very emotional, but I can say today, for me to sit here today, I thank you, Pastor Lee, Pastor, for sharing this with me, Pastor
It's
Lee
okay.
Michael,
It's okay.
because when I first shared it with you, um, it was painful. And I know you teaching us how to do motivational speaking. But I asked you, can I just talk to you as a pastor?
Yes.
Because I felt relief that I can share this. And it felt good to get off. But then I went to my daughter and I said, can I share this part of my life with people and about you? She said, Mom, it's going to help you. But from that day to this day,
She
Pastor
told you it
Michael,
was going to help you too, didn't she?
yeah, yes, it was healing for me to be able to face it and deal with, for me to even sit here right now and talk about it without crying or emotional tears. It's like, that's healing. And whenever you can face those big giants or face things, it begin to start to heal you. And I felt like that was the beginning of my healing for that situation. And
And
I'm blessed.
let me just say this, Diane. I have watched like the caterpillar and the butterfly. I've watched you come out of that process, that cocoon process, and spread your wings. And I sense there's a new sense of purpose behind everything that you've gone through. That
Yes,
now you're excited about being able to share it with others. Hopefully, to be able to help others. Is that correct?
yes, yes, absolutely. The best thing I can share with anybody, deal with your situation because you're going to bleed on somebody else if you don't. It's not going to go away. And it's how you deal with the situations that will help you to grow. We don't like to face those monsters. We want to leave it back there where it's at. But I learned by doing this and taking these classes that it is okay to be transparent. It's okay because it opens up. You get the benefits out of it. I benefited from sharing my story with them. It was, oh my God, when I hugged my children and looked at my grandchildren's face, they were like, Grandma, I never knew you went through that. So now they have a whole different perspective of their grandmother and my children too. They're like, Ma, I didn't know you went through that. I'm like,
And I
yeah,
can see they had a whole another level of respect for you and
yes,
appreciation for you because now they were able to put some pieces in the picture of this woman that they call grandma that they
yes,
never knew before.
yes, 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 yes.
And you
It
alluded to it. I'm
was,
just going to tell our folk. You alluded to the fact that we have some classes. We started a motivational series back in January, and Diane was one of several who saw it as an opportunity to tell their own story. Diane wanted to be able to tell her story, but as she said and confessed in all transparency, she was very uncomfortable with it in the beginning. And when we would have our conversations, a lot of times they went from the instructing for motivational speaking and structuring the message to the pastoral type counseling sessions, which was
yes,
okay because I
yes,
understood that that was needed for you to get to a place of healing so that
yes,
you can confidently share your story and, in fact, not bleed on others, but be a blessing to them.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you
What words
again.
of
Yes.
encouragement? What words of encouragement would you have for those out there who may have been traumatized and are silently suffering and bleeding on others, just as you had been for so long?
Yes, I would say to anybody because trauma come in so many different ways. You'll think you're not being traumatized, or you think this is, um, it's not trauma to you. It's not traumatic to you because what's traumatic to you is not traumatic to me. Simple as me seeing my brother on the streets dead. That might not be traumatic to somebody, or somebody hear me saying I had an abortion at the age of 16. That might not be traumatic to you, but what is traumatic to you? And that's what I'm saying. You need to take the time to deal with it, face it, deal with it, get the help that you can get because back then, like I said, we didn't have help. Our help was the dinner tables if they want to discuss it. After that, it was over with. So now I say, go get it's so many avenues you can get, whether it's like we're doing now with a doctor. You can go see a doctor. You got psych. It's so much help out here. And I just thank God for my family, my mother, my husband, my children, and my good best friends that was there. And of course, my
Leading
doctor that was
your support system.
my
Your
support.
That's very
You got to
important.
have that village. You need that village around you. When you're going through, you need that really need them women or whoever it might be to say, look, I got you. When you cry, you can cry on my shoulders.
Yeah.
And, if you want to come out and go eat, I'm gonna go out and eat with you. When you need somebody just to talk to, you need that village. Because when you stand alone, it is so hard to get through situations. So I thank God for my village. I
Amen. Well,
thank God
listen,
for
we
it.
thank God for you. And
Yes.
also, for our viewers, if by chance you may have struck a nerve with someone who would like to maybe privately reach out to you and just maybe connect with you because they've been inspired by your story and would like to talk with you, is there a way they could reach you? Do you have an
Well,
email address? You have an email?
yes, yes, sir. Um, I would like for them to go through because this is what I do, Pastor Lee. And Michaels, I have a nonprofit,
Okay.
and myself and some women and my son and us get together, and
Okay.
we mentor the youth because we understand that the world they live in today, that they see way more than what we see in these
Yeah.
streets. And for them to be able to walk away and go down to the next block and talk about what they just seen and move on, I'm like, no one is realizing that these children one day is already a traumatic situation what they witness.
And they've been affected, and the way they've been affected could eventually impact their future.
Yes, absolutely. So we
Well,
give them doors and
how can they
so
reach you?
you can reach me at, first of all, my phone number is on my website, which you can go to. It's called Emerge Like an Eagle, all together. EmergeLikeAnEagle.com. If you
Emerge
go there, emerge
like.com.
like an eagle.
So
Yes, go there.
when I said the caterpillar and the butterfly, I was kind of in the ballpark with those wings, huh?
Yes, 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 yes. Oh
That's
my gosh,
awesome.
lovely. I love what we do. I couldn't do it without the wonderful people that's in the group. And I mean, they're so supportive when we all get together. And the children just love it because they got a safe place where they can sit and talk and share their stories. And we listen and we encourage them. So,
Well, we appreciate you sharing your story, Diane, with us, and I hope the folk will take the advice to reach out and connect with you. And we celebrate the great work that you're doing
thank
with your
you.
nonprofit, with your group. And we want to thank you for joining us on this segment of This Is My Story. You have really blessed us. Trust me, you have really blessed. I know you blessed me, and I've heard your story before. And even each time I hear it, it still blesses me.
Yes,
And I really
yes,
believe you blessed others. So, any
yes.
parting words you want to share before we go?
As I said when I did the first one, you don't let your pain define your future. Don't let it define who you are. Remember to stay the course. It's going to come up. You're going to have some trials and tribulations. I just came out of one of them big old storms. I just had a big storm, what I call betrayal. But it's okay today because I'm not letting it define me. I'm trusting in God and keep moving on. So whoever's listening, know that whatever you're going through, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay because you ain't going to let it define you.
All right, that's a
Keep
great word
moving.
to close out
Yes,
with. It's going to be okay. And we
it's going
thank
to
you,
be okay.
Diane. And folk, we
Yes.
thank you for joining us. Share some
Yes.
comments on the podcast. I'm sure Diane would like to hear your feedback or reach out to her on the website. Until the next time, remember, this is my story and continue to look out for it. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to subscribe
Yes.
to This Is My Story so that you'll get notifications when we have new podcasts loaded up on our YouTube channel because one day this might be your story.
Yes.